I think it's around 140. 140. I was close. I had 143 in my head, and he said it didn't have to be exact. So
That's a reconciler.
yes, and payroll.
Thank you.
Does the city able to settle any lawsuits?
I just wrote.
They settled the Fitzgerald for sure, because that was $270,000, and they negotiated that down to what, like $170,000, and they're paying the installment.
No, sir, thank you.
That's the one
That's
that's in
the
the
145.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. They had already made the 2016 payment of $25,000. The others,
Well, do we settle any lawsuits, or how does that
Well,
work?
today, the Crystal Wakefield lawsuit was dismissed, and one that probably you heard about in the news for, they reported $22 million. I have handouts for you if you would like. It was in the Ohio Supreme Court since last week. So if you want me to pass it out now to the commission member?
Where the court ruled?
No, this is just to show you that this particular case, Arnold Black, was appealed a week ago. And so some kind of way, there was a recorded trial. But we'll be contesting that as well. But we had already appealed the case for some constitutional irregularities that were being ordered by the judge. So we went ahead and appealed it. And then after that, I guess a trial started. But that verdict is going to be contested.
You know, we wondered about that, because Hillary and I were looking at that, and we wondered about that, about the appeals. And that's why, is that the appeals were on constitutional issues, and the judge went right on ahead and heard
Yes.
the case.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's been before, in fact, when the Court of Appeals for the 8th District dismissed it, March 24th, I worked all night, and we had it in before morning on May 25th. Let's say March or May 24th.
Okay.
The Court of Appeals for 8th District dismissed the appeal, the second appeal. And then we worked all night and had it in early that morning to the Ohio Supreme Court. So that's, as you can see, it's had jurisdiction over the case since May 25th.
And what is the Crystal Wakefield case?
That was with RTNA. Supposedly, a bus driver, Mr. Brown, was driving down Houston and ran over one of our potholes, and 3 individuals on the bus said that the chuck hole was so deep that when they ran over it, they bounced up and their heads hit the ceiling and they got injured. But that was dismissed. RTA is paying each of those individuals $12,000. They would like us, if we could, to contribute $12,000 towards the verdict, but I have been very unresponsive to that request.
Wow. Again, Hillary and I were backing around and going around, and we went down down Hessler Street, and I would hold that out as if anybody complains about the streets in East Cleveland, they've not lived until they've gone down Hessler. Because you just, in the circle. It's not in the circle. Yeah, I mean, the streets are like, very bad.
Everyone here probably is talking about their own.
I know, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Is that East Cleveland?
No, it's the circle. Any other questions for the financial supervisor? Mayor, how are you?
I'm wonderful, and you?
Okay.
Good.
It's a nice day out, it's great.
It's beautiful.
Do you have anything to report for us?
Just, we've been in panic for quite a while. And really, the length of the empanelment of all of us, I know it's wearing on some of the members, and certainly appreciate your service. The length of the deployment here for all of us, if we add the additional years or decades that East Cleveland was in fiscal emergency, it really demonstrates the difficulty that the city finds itself in. And I think that there's probably at least some recognition from each of us as we deal with this every time we come together, that maybe this commission is not equipped. I mean, it doesn't have the powers that are needed to increase revenue in the city, because that's really what our problem is. And I think that with individual conversations with each of you, I think you understand. I think everybody does. And the point is, for some cities, for many cities, a fiscal commission with these powers and this purview would be an excellent solution to their problem. But in our city, this commission and its powers are not the solution to our problem. The solution to our problem has to be an economic solution, not simply a cost-cutting and monitoring solution. We've proposed a couple of things. We know that the solutions that will actually do something about it are very limited. Bankruptcy is a potential solution for some communities, but it's a cost-side solution. East Cleveland, as we know, we don't overspend. I mean, we're not spending a lot of money on many, many things that we don't need. We're spending just a little bit of money on less than we actually need. Our real problem is not cost, which could be solved by bankruptcy. Our real problem is revenue, the generation of revenue. And we know, as we sit here, the two main generators, actually the primary generator of revenue is income tax, which is basically how many people live in your city, but more importantly, how many people work in the city. 40 years ago, and we'll be blue in the face talking about this, 40 years ago, there were 20,000 people who worked in East Cleveland. Income tax was fine to support a city with 20,000 people. Today it's 5,000, a 75% drop. We have the same streets, only they're 40 years older. We got the same underground systems, they're 40 years older. We got the same traffic and street lights for the most part, they're 40 years older. But we're supposed to fix all of that, replace all of that, rebuild that, do economic development, and keep a police and fire force with a 75% drop in the number of people working, not to mention the income level. The income level when we had 20,000 people working was essentially $50,000 per household in today's dollars. Today it's 20,000. So not only do we have 75% less people working, we've got a coincidental 60% drop in the average household income. Those things aren't supposed to go down over time, they're supposed to go up. So it's a real system challenge, and it's something that a commission like this, full of wonderful and smart people, just is not set up to handle. There's no commission that can give you revenue. So the reality is there are very few solutions. The people are going to have to decide. Ultimately, do we continue to live as we are in the revenue pool that we're in of 17,000 people, 5,000 working with an average household income of $20,000? That's all the income that we have access to. Or do we try and join a larger revenue pool, a revenue pool that has 400,000 people in it? 100,000 who come downtown to work every day and make high income, CEOs, accountants, lawyers, doctors, things like that, that has $1 billion a year just about at its disposal to fix things like potholes and do economic development. A place that has a bond rating. You know, we can't even fathom doing economic development as a city, which generates revenue ultimately, without a bond rating. And that bond rating hasn't existed since 1988. So I'm glad that there's at least talk of the city council now appointing this commission to study and offer some recommendations for the people to ultimately decide. Because this is the kind of challenge that individuals on a commission can't pull us out of. A mayor acting as a mayor with an administration does not have the powers and the tools to pull us out of it. The council does not have the powers and tools, but the council has the ability to get a process started that might make an option available, and then everybody gets to choose. And in America, you can't go wrong when you leave it to the people to choose. So that's where we are.
Anybody have any questions for the mayor? Mr. Kane? Any reports?
Thank you. Just to piggyback on what the mayor was saying, the council realizes the financial position of the city and the challenges ahead because of the financial position being forecasted. And collectively as a council, we realize that the decisions that need to be made, particularly 2 years out, you know, it's the kind of decision that it's a hard decision, right? Because some say, well, you've heard him mention the financial cliff. So you look at fire, you look at police, and I think with that, it is time that we did look at appointing the commission, and more important than just that is to do a study, have an independent study from an outside consultant, Conway McKenzie, kind of look at it and kind of give us maybe a second alternative, right? A path forward, if there is one. They can tell us what that would look like and what it would entail, so that then the residents would have an option, and not just an annexation option. So I think that's where we're at as a council, because ultimately it will be the people's decision. And it's not so much whether we can survive, because we can survive, and I'm for an independent East Cleveland, but it's what the residents would be willing to live with. So yes, we're trying to move that forward. We are moving that forward, I should say. Thank you.
Just maybe to piggyback on what these two gentlemen have said, when you talk in terms of what I think you're absolutely correct. What on a couple of different points. First of all, the mayor is completely right. This commission cannot generate revenue for the city. There is no way that we can do that. And in the vast majority of the places that I go, it's not a revenue issue at all. It is spending too much. And so that we watch the spending. This city is not spending too much. They have lost a considerable number of people, and that is where most of the spending lies, is in people who provide services to the constituents. As far as what the people are willing to live with, so to speak, and it does. It goes back on both points. We're looking in the general fund, estimated revenues of a little over $10 million. So to keep that city, keep East Cleveland as a separate entity, there, at least for the short term until economic development some kickstarting might occur. And from where that germinates, I'm not sure. But let's just say short term, we've got a little bit over $10 million. What kind of city is that going to buy you? And will you be happy with that city? Because that's only $10 million, and while it sounds like I could do a lot with $10 million, for a city it isn't. If you look at just the cost of police and fire alone, you have little, if any, left at all after that. As a matter of fact, police alone estimated at 3.2, fire give another 2.5, 5 something, that's half of your budget right there in just police and fire. And who pays for the folks in economic development, or excuse me, in community development? Yes, I understand they get federal funding, but there's matches that the general fund still has to come out with. Who's going to pay Rumpke for the garbage pickup? What you're assessed in garbage isn't all the cost of what Rumpke is charging you. So again, Parks and Rec, that's an additional cost. So it does boil down to, at least for the short term, these are the dollars that you have coming in. What can you do with that? And what are you willing to give up? I mean, what are the choices that are important to you? I mean, you get a bunch of people together and say, well, parks or whatever, you know, and all of these things are justifiably important things. But when you have a finite amount of money, you've got to make choices.
Can I add to that? I think in looking at the finances, but particularly if we say that there's $10 million in the general fund budget, about $6 million of that is income taxes or taxes, so income taxes. So broadly for the city, and this isn't a one-to-one, but it'll just kind of give an example, the city would have to double in order to get enough money from income taxes for the city to run. We've talked about it in our last meeting. You probably need $16 million to run a city, and you got 10, so you need to get another 60% in income, which even if it were to happen or there would be a way forward, no city can double in a short period of time. You would be talking about going against all things that are happening. So in a region that's losing people, the city would have to go against a total tie, which is probably, frankly, unlikely. And so as you guys look at the choice sets from the council, I think the faster that a decision gets made, and I think you said that you're looking to put it onto the ballot, but individuals would need to be able to make that decision, because financially, there is no opportunity that can give a person a 60% pay increase in the amount of time necessary. And that's 60% not including the fact that you owe 30% on your credit card already. You got $3 million in back debt. Even if that were to clear through a bankruptcy, all that would happen is in 2 more years you will owe $3 million again, and then you go to bankruptcy because you can't afford the bills, that you still need $6 million. So of the $16 million, on the first month you would need $19 million because you owe somebody $3 million. And so, hopefully the city and the city leaders can have that conversation with the community, but we get to a place where it's not a lot of options to do the traditional models of economic development and bringing back employment and having large manufacturers. We don't even, as a region, get companies that bring in 5,000 people. It's just not the makeup. It is going to be in this region, it'll be a IT company with 20 people who are really, really smart, but you're only getting income tax on 20 people.
Anything else? maybe this is answered, well, let me talk about the recovery plan. Recovery plan has been agreed to. Council voted on it, commission voted on it. Now that we've got a plan, we've got to follow the plan. How do we follow the plan? By making sure, hopefully, we are watching, through these reports, we're watching to make sure that revenues are coming in as estimated, because it's a total picture of revenues minus expenditures. And we're also looking at the expenditures to make sure that they're in line. So this plan had a certain amount of expenditures planned in it with the estimated revenues. It's a balancing act. Now, the revenues, for the most part, I believe have been, we've got some shortages there, but we're holding our own, at least for the first 4 months of the calendar year. But it's only 4 months. We've got 8 more to go, so there could be disruptions in the revenues coming in. So how do you handle that? That's an estimate. There are certain things that we have no control about, but what we do have control on to a certain degree is expenditures. So any expenditure that was not envisioned when that plan was created should not be entered into. And if it is entered into, then you're going to have to make a cut. You're going to have to do without something else, because you can't keep on spending because you're not within your plan. And if you're not within your plan, we got to ask you for another plan. And as the mayor has said, we can't cut our way out of it. But what we can do is hold down the unnecessary expenditures. And I'm talking unnecessary. There are things that are out there, and Ms. Hemmons has spoken to, that have happened and that are a liability. But I'm talking about expenditures that are within our control, that we don't, like contracts, for instance, that we don't have to enter into. Now, I'm not going to be here and say you can't enter into it, but when it comes down to the bills and the invoices coming in for that, if these 2 ladies are going to look, do I pay somebody today or do I not pay the vendor on this contract? I think the answer is clear. The employee is going to get paid. The contractor is not. So again, to prevent your payables, past due payables from growing larger, you've got to watch that. Because that's all that's going to do. If you enter into contracts that is not in the plan, and things that you have not been doing in the past, because, correct me if I'm wrong, these expenditures are based on historicals, right? Looking at first on what payroll should be estimated at, because that's the #1 issue right here, and it's most of your budget. Looking at that, looking at historicals, if you enter into an agreement, an arrangement, a contract, whatever, that causes an expenditure that is not in historical, that is not in the plan, you're going against the plan, and even worse, that contractor who bargained with you in good faith is not going to get paid. And if any of you sitting here would be in the shoes of that contractor, you certainly wouldn't want to be that person, because that's your bread and butter. So again, I would just caution everyone in the city, please watch and make sure that you follow the plan. Given that, let's go back to the plan. We had